Hello and welcome to the Vinny Brusco Show podcast, episode number 417. This week's episode, I am joined by Mike Bledsoe. Mike is one of the original pioneers and one of the original figureheads of CrossFit. He was the host of the Barbell Shrug podcast, which I was fairly obsessed with back in 2011, 12, and 13. He was also the host of the Bledsoe Show podcast. And Mike has shifted from the world of CrossFit to a little bit more of a more mindful approach to health and wellness and fitness. And he started the Strong Coach and is the CEO and the founder of that coaching program, which gives coaches an opportunity to not only just coach their clients, but gives them the opportunity to hear and listen and to be more in tune with their clients, therefore leading them to having more successful clients and stepping outside the Instagram picture-perfect life of health and wellness and fitness. So I was stoked to get an opportunity to speak to Mike about his journey and what brought him to this new mindset and his new approach to health and wellness and fitness. And we talked about everything. He's starting his own farm, a regenerative farm. He's starting a small area for retreats. He is working with coaches, as I mentioned, to help create a better relationship with the mind, body, the spirit. And he's taking his experiences from CrossFit and psychedelics and his own internal journey and putting it into a program that's going to help change the mindset and the approach to health, wellness, and fitness. So I hope you enjoy episode number 417 with Mike Bledsoe. Enjoy.
Hey, this is Mike Bledsoe, and you're listening to the Vinny Brusco Show.
And here we go.
There you go.
All right, we got it.
See how long this lasts.
Yeah.
Holy shit, Zoom. How are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
You gotta pivot when you can.
Yeah.
That exhausted me. I get so fucked up with technology, with things like that will bother me so much that I'm just like, I don't know if it's me, if it's the technology. I get so wrapped up in that like headspace of like this. I want to throw the computer through a window.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your background you have there.
Thank you. I'm in my my pod shed.
Your pod shed. I like that. You got the lava.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I'm afraid to touch anything.
Don't touch it.
I'm like, there we go. Okay. So yeah, I got the lava lamp, the Buddha head, Boba Fett, Marcus Aurelius,
Nice.
signed Joe Rogan dollar bill.
Nice.
I like your background. Where are you?
I'm hanging out at my buddy's house, Alex Rybczynski. And the background is a sauna, and he's got this. He's got he's downstairs is the gym, up here is a lounge and office, and he's got a massage table in there. And yeah, so I've been working out and doing sauna and cold plunge over here for the last few weeks. So yeah, it's been nice.
That's not bad. That's definitely a good test. Do you outside of this location, do you do a lot of cold plunges and a lot of sauna treatment?
Oh yeah. So I've been nomadic for about 3 years, so I might find myself, if it's available, if I can make it happen. And sometimes I just find a horse trough and I go pick up a bunch of ice. But when it's available, I use the shit out of it. And when I did have a home, yeah, I had all that stuff set up myself. So I'll be moving to a new house on Tuesday. So
there you go.
I should have it all rolling by then.
It's so important to have those convenient, uncomfortable things available, right? Like the sauna, the whether it be an ice bath or a shower or a barrel, whatever you use, it's so important to have those small little things just like at your fingertips.
Yeah, I think what you just said was brilliant. It needs to be convenient, because if it's inconvenient and uncomfortable, people won't do it.
You're going to avoid it.
Yeah.
You're going to avoid it at all costs. Your brain is going to be like, no. Not only do we have to go to another location, but now we're going to another location to do what right now? That makes no sense. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I've been following you for a long time, with obviously from the Barbell Shrug days, which I think dates back to about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And following you on your journey, you've shifted from the world of CrossFit to what seems to be a little bit more of a mindful approach to life with the coaching business and obviously some of your experiences. What was kind of that pivot for you, and what kind of sparked that change? Was it like, what came about?
You know, there's definitely some moments in time that I can look at and go, okay, that was huge for me. I'd say step one was the podcast being a big personal development tool in itself, and really watching my language, being more intentional about what I say, knowing that thousands or tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of people are listening. And I go, well, I got to mind my P's and Q's. For one, you know, no one wants to look like an idiot or be wrong. And for two, you know, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And so uh, the interaction with experts over time, seeing where I've been wrong, getting more comfortable admitting when I was wrong or when I am wrong, has been very, very critical. And yeah, through that process, just interviewing people and hanging out with people who are the best at what they do, I was learning all the ways in which I was wrong up until that point. Uh, you know, another thing that came up is I found psychedelics, and psychedelics was a big piece of me becoming more mindful about my relationships and training. So I mix that in with learning to be wrong about things and being okay to change my mind. And then I would say that the last big thing that really got me to set my ego aside around training and admit that I was wrong on a large scale was having an injury. And that is presenting at, you know, with pain, and then going to the doc and going, oh, you have 2 hernias. And I go, great, let's get surgery, because that's really the only way to repair that. And I go in and they come out of surgery and they go, well, you had 3. And the months leading up to that, I remember looking at my body and going, oh, yeah, my body's a little crooked, but I'm the strongest I've ever been. And I've got, you know, nationals coming up. I've got to perform. I'll worry about my health later. And so becoming injured, getting sidelined, not being able to do all the activities that I did, and having to sit with, you know, my entire life, I had a lot of physical activity as a great distraction, and that primary distraction of exercise, I lost it for months and months and months. And not only did I lose it, but I lost it in a good time, because I was surrounded by experts. I was surrounded by people who really knew what to do. And so I was able to reach out to Jill Miller and Kelly Starrett and go, look, this is the injury I'm dealing with. It was really Jill Miller that got me looking but more at breathing mechanics. And so I started looking at breathing mechanics, and I started learning, oh, there's, you know, the thing that my body wants to do aside from anything else is to breathe. If you're not breathing well, then everything else, you're going to find dysfunction everywhere else. So I discovered that, and I go, oh, my breathing's off. I have dysfunctional movement everywhere. That's why my shoulder hurt. That's why my hip hurt. And then I just started looking at the training overall and started taking a step back. And while additionally, you know, while additionally finding foods that were much more healing, and realizing that a lot of the junk I was putting in my body to be as big and strong as possible I was really wasting a lot of money, and I was causing a lot of inflammation in my body. So there was a good 6-month period there where I had a series of wake up calls that all stemmed from an injury forcing me to slow down.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? It takes one moment to put you on this different trajectory that creates all this awareness. And you mentioned like the first step of kind of being wrong, right? And then the physical element of being wrong is getting injured, right? And then that injury kind of recognizing the ego that comes along with all those things, right? And I think the big umbrella there is being humbled, and being humbled physically mentally, spiritually, whether it be like your knowledge and being humbled by admitting that I'm wrong in this and I don't know everything, and using exercise as a distraction, right? Because you feel good. So if I'm feeling good, then I must be good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've now I've adopted a saying. I don't know if I heard it somewhere and made it my own, but I tell people,
Yeah.
you can either choose humility or you can be humbled, and you're gonna find humility either way. And when I was younger, I got humbled a lot, and that I didn't choose that humility, but it came crashing down on my head. But now my practice is, can I approach how many situations and experiences can I approach where I can act and behave as though I don't know, and be in a true place of learning versus showing up to a situation going, oh, I know, because that's how I used to show up to things.
Did the obviously the psychedelics have a contribution in that humbling and that awareness that you know nothing, right? For me, a big modality is the sensory deprivation tank. Like that, for me, I can go in there and I get the realization very quickly that I don't know shit, and that I'm just, there's that balance of yin and yang for me inside the sensory deprivation tank. What were some of the experiences in your plant medicine ceremonies or in any of the psychedelics you've taken part of that kind of contributed to that, like, awareness?
Yeah, so the first time I really took mushrooms intentionally, there were
Not
I
at a
had
frat party.
no frat parties.
Yeah, yeah. Set
Actually,
the setting is so important.
I was very I stayed away from psychedelics, and I had been in the military, and and I grew up in a conservative home. And so, I remember being in my late 20s and be like, oh, I'll smoke a joint every once in a while, but, I'll just drink booze, and that's it, thinking
Right.
that's okay. And then, yeah, so I had my first bout with the old mushrooms, and what ended up happening for me is I was really, really fortunate because I had been exposed to some really good personal development work before that, which a percentage of that had landed, a small percentage. And then
Right.
in that psychedelic experience, it really landed in a very experiential way. And I was able to see where in my life, that any complaints I had about my life were actually my own creation. I was responsible for that. I was the creator of my world. And I had the experience on that medicine was staring up at the sky, watching it go fractal, and then witnessing it fall inside of my own body and going, "Oh, I think all of this is out there. It's all in here." And having just it's a radical acceptance of my part and my responsibility in the world that I live in. And so that was so I remember laying in the grass and crying because I had seen in my life where I had blamed others for so much of what was actually my fault.
Well, recognizing, like you said, like the sky going fractal and then coming down into the essence of you and going into your core, and recognizing that you are the creator of this reality. How do you navigate afterwards? Because it's one thing to have that message, or that download, as people like to use the term, but it's one thing to receive that and to have the awareness of that, but now you have to walk through life with this new perspective that, if you want to say God, the source, universe, psilocybin, whatever you want to label it, has given you a message. How do you navigate and walk through the world with this new information?
Well, in that particular case, I had gotten a second message after that, which is really beautiful because my advice to people is always go for one.
Yeah, right,
And if you,
right.
and if you
If you
get
get
two or
half of one,
three,
you're good. Yeah.
yeah. But I also got the message of empathy, and I saw where I didn't even know what empathy was. I heard the word, I heard people talk about it. I thought it was something that weak people did and all that. And in my experience, uh, the major thing that I learned where I had been wrong, the place in my life in which I had recognized that I was the most wrong is in communication. I realized that I had not been listening at all. I thought I was listening to people, but I was not listening to people. And I realized that anytime anyone was talking, I was just waiting for my turn to talk and tell them how they were wrong and why they should listen to me and this and that. And so the way I integrated that, the way I, having had that experience and having this huge aha, was going home that day and listening to my wife and for the first time and watching her cry because even though she was married to me, I had never even listened to her. How, which is crazy. But and now after, years later, I realize, yeah, most people don't listen to anybody too. I wasn't the only one. And I made it a practice to ask questions. And one of the benefits to having done some personal development stuff prior to that is there's one book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, it talks about shutting your mouth and listening. Now, I had tried to do that prior to having that psychedelic experience, but I was still in my head thinking about what I was going to say, even though I was asking a lot of questions. So I actually became curious, and so I started practicing genuine curiosity. And I remember going to bed that night thinking, "Wow, I don't want the effects to go away. I want to make sure that I remain curious about people tomorrow." And I woke up the next day worried that that would not happen. Um, but uh, I did. I kept listening to people. I started becoming more curious. I became much more gentle with people's opinions and thoughts and feelings and all of that kind of stuff. I took more time, and I really realized that they were also existing in a world of their own creation, and neither one of us were probably right. And I think that having that realization, I look back on it, I go, it's actually very easy for me to integrate. I would say that I'm very blessed for some reason. I got lucky in the way that my mind developed, and once I realize a thing, I obsess over it. And I have techniques now that help with that, but when you have that realization, and if you go, I think the mistake a lot of people make is they go, "Oh, I got the realization, it's fixed." And people don't know that awareness is only the first step
Yep.
to having healing, or the first step in integrating. And and what I know is that after you get the awareness, it's not time to pat yourself on the back. That's when the work
Yeah.
begins,
Yeah.
and you get to start practicing that new knowledge. And it's just like anything else. You need repetition with it to make it happen. And so the mistake people are making are patting themselves on the back and high-fiving, and then feeling like they might need to have another psychedelic experience or medicine experience to oh, I didn't get it, I'll get it this time. It's like, no, you just don't know how to do the work yet. It requires a level of discipline to harvest the results.
Yeah, I think even with my clients, I mentioned the first thing is that awareness, right? What brings you to the door? What brings you to the cave? What is that awareness, and how is it being created, and where now comes the work? Now it's the accountability and the discipline, which you could have a coach, you could have whatever you want to have, therapist, whatever you want to have, but ultimately it boils down to accountability and discipline within yourself. And how are you
Yeah.
going to show up for yourself with this new knowledge, with this new awareness? And then ultimately, it's the Aristotle, Jocko Willink, discipline equals freedom, right? That's
Yeah.
when you're able to now, I guess, after you achieve the freedom, whatever that freedom is, if it's even an achievable goal, if it's a line of a finish line, which there isn't one, we know that, but you can give yourself a quick little pat on the back, and then it's back to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the way that people tend to think about freedom, and the way I've been playing around with it recently, is people, when they think about freedom, they tend to think, I will be free when I'm free of something. They're trying to get away from a thing. I'll be free. I did a series of interviews with clients recently, and there was one of the things that that was super, or two things I said that were super common. One was, I want to travel and I don't want to have to worry about money.
Well,
right. So freedom.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So so freedom shows up. That's how freedom is showing up for them, because they'll talk about freedom, financial freedom, the freedom to travel. So this word freedom is popping up in the minds of people, which is great. But it seems like it is cool. It's like, oh, if I'm free to travel, it's like they're going towards something. But um, what I witnessed in myself, I say go for it. Go get all the things you want, because at some point you may realize that none of that matters, and that if you want to have, true peace and happiness, that's something that's not going to be generated by an outside thing, and that a lot of times generating the peace and happiness first is what allows you to have those experiences. And what I've witnessed is people want to end their suffering. And so the mind says, well, when you can travel and not worry about money, when you're financially free, it'll end your suffering. And the the mind is just consumed with not suffering anymore, even though the mind is creating the suffering and is putting all of these conditions in place to stop suffering. And I've really gotten to the point now is, if you want the suffering, if you want the suffering to end once and for all, then you're asking for death. And I think it's a good idea to just really love that suffering, watch that mind run, do its thing, and you just go, oh, I love you. I love all this suffering. I know you don't like it right now, but it's okay. Uh, and but that actually does that's part of my that's how my marketing mind works as well. Is I go, well, what is it that people think is going to end their suffering? What do they think?
Sure.
And then putting a finish line on it, right? It's like, oh, I got a program. It'll end your suffering in 6 months. Now, I don't say that. I don't say
Right.
to end your suffering. What I say is your mind is so attached to getting this result, because it thinks that when it gets this result that the suffering won. So, I mean, that's pretty much how all marketing works. But if you understand that level of it, you can be really good at it and go, oh, where are people suffering? Oh, okay. I can give them tools that will actually help reduce their suffering, and we will move towards a thing that they want. But I know, and you know, that they're going to find peace and happiness along the way, well before before they achieve that condition they put in place.
Well, I think of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And
oh yeah, I read that this past summer.
Oh,
so good.
I had coincidentally, serendipitously, an old coworker of mine gave me the CD, and I was going through all this stuff in my garage, and I came across, and I was like, I'm going to listen to this. It's a very hard read / listen, very like gut wrenching. But he talks about when people would get sick. And when the biggest drop-offs were around the holidays, because people would set this goal in mind of, we'll be out of here by Christmas, we'll be out of here by New Year's. And when they started to get closer and closer and realized the situation wasn't changing, and they got to that day and they were still there, that's when they started to die, because their bodies gave up hope in what they were actually trying to achieve. So this line, this finish line that they put in their mind, whether the result came through on that end, it didn't make a difference, because they set the hope and the expectation. And it's to the point of where he kind of just stayed in the present moment. He stayed where he was. He didn't get, too wrapped up in the future. He just stayed present. And that's where people do get tripped up, right? We think that this car or this thing or, is going to bring me this happiness, traveling without care, right? Yes, that will bring a tangible experiential happiness, but that's fleeting. And along the way of the self-discovery, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, whatever the term is, that's where you start to learn what the happiness actually is. It's the happiness in the process.
Yeah. And that's one reason I really like, anytime I find myself, creating suffering from that of my mind, I go, the best way I found to do it is just look at it and go, I love this. I love the suffering, not the situation. I love the suffering. And all of a sudden the situation, the process that I need to go through to find resolution for whatever situation I'm in that's causing suffering becomes very obvious. I go, oh, and I go, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the solution. It's like
Exactly.
to every problem is like, I just need to find this piece of the puzzle. Well, let's go look for it.
Right.
Like, why am I going to beat myself up while I'm looking for this piece of the puzzle when I could just find the piece of the puzzle?
Right. And I think creating that suffering, whether it be a cold plunge, a sauna, a CrossFit workout, jujitsu, whatever it is, creating that suffering, creating that difficulty lends itself well, yoga, whatever it is, in the situation where you now take the experience from that and now you apply it to your actual day and day, right? And you say,
Yeah.
okay, this is very much like being in someone's guard, or this is like, open workout 15.1, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like there are lessons in that, and it's not there that we achieve the goal. It's where we learn or get the medicine or get the information to apply to our everyday. And I think for people who don't create their own suffering, it's, to your point, suffering's going to come find you, and now you're
Yeah.
going to not have the tools to default to on how to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that I made a post a while back about combo. I was in a combo ceremony with a group of men, and combo is a frog medicine where it's taken from the venom of a frog in the Amazon. You burn little holes in your skin, you put the venom on, your whole body fills with heat, feels like you got the worst case of the flu ever. Is the best way to describe it to someone who's never done it. And yet I've done it about 30, 40 times. And people go, well, but the after effect is amazing. But one of the things I find really beautiful about that medicine is it's something that's voluntary. You can take it off anytime you want, kind of like getting in an ice bath. It's voluntary. You can get out anytime you want, but you're also passive. I go, I'm going to let this medicine, whether it be the ice or the combo, I'm going to let this medicine work, and I can tap out anytime I want, or I can just sit here and be with it, and it brings it to my doorstep. And for both of those things, both ice and combo, what they have in common is they're extremely uncomfortable, and they improve your immune system, and they improve your psychological ability to manage stress as well. And yeah, if you don't voluntarily go into those spaces, especially things that are good for you, like those things, uh, then yeah, discomfort is going to come knocking at your doorstep in the form of disease, and that disease is going to show up. And we look at what happened over the last year with COVID-19, and so many people. What I witnessed happen was that people, instead of, everyone was so fucking comfortable in their homes that any solution to COVID-19 was also went hand in hand with convenience and comfort. A lot of people feel like they were majorly inconvenienced, but you didn't leave your air conditioned or heated house. You still went to the store, but all you had to do was slap a piece of paper over your face. It was really disgusting to watch how people were, and now it's all about the vaccine. It's like, yeah, you just show up to the doc, you don't have to do shit. They stick you with it, and now you're done. It's convenient, and maybe it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not the same discomfort as hopping in the ice for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I watched the general public simply disregard anything. I posted the post about combo, and I made the comment of, we sit with this medicine and discomfort, and we choose discomfort before it comes, disease starts knocking at our door. And I didn't realize how controversial that post was going to be. And
somewhere inside you knew.
yeah. Yeah, there's somewhere inside I know that I'm fucking with people, but it was, yeah, that's just, it's so interesting to me. and I feel very blessed to be able to hold this perspective, because over the last year I've interacted directly with people who were actively experiencing the symptoms of COVID, and I didn't get sick, and I wasn't scared of it. I wasn't scared of getting it, and I wasn't scared of getting sick. And 2 occasions I spent multiple days with people who actively had it, and I didn't distance myself. I sat right across from them, had dinner, all that kind of stuff, just hung out and thinking, well, I might become symptomatic. And I'm going to be careful around people who might, fall dead around me if I were to give it to them. And I kept myself pretty isolated after those times. But the way I see it is, the best way to build immunity against something is to expose yourself to it. And no fucking way someone's going to create something in a lab that's going to look enough like the real thing to be better than the real thing when it comes to building immunity. It's just, I'm sure someone will scream science at me at this point in the show, in which I'd say go study some biology and how stimulus response works.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly in the fact that, we seek these comforts and these conveniences, and whether it be medical, mental, spiritual, whatever it is, we quickly try to get to the answer rather than diagnose the actual what's going on, like what is going on. And your body has the ability to fight these things. So if you
Yeah.
don't bring your body to the arena to fight it, well, then when it actually does show up, if you're sitting in comfort and convenience, when they come knock on your door to go fight, to fight as the gladiators, your body's going to fail. Your body's not going to be up for the challenge. You haven't done any of the work for yourself to show up and combat it, no matter what it is. And by exposing yourself, and like you said, it's not about going licking handles at Stop and Shop, right? It's about having an exposure comfortability and being like, okay, like there are people that are definitely, it's not fake, right? And you can go down rabbit holes of that, and I'll ride with you. But there's a real element to it, and it's about being cautious, being aware, having respect for those around you, right? But ultimately, it boils down to yourself. And I had this conversation with my wife yesterday, and I was like, people just put their faith, and I'll use faith in a vaccine or in a president or in, or in a god or whatever it is. And we lean into these things like Superman, Gandalf the White's going to come and save us. That shit doesn't exist. And it does exist at the same time, but it only exists within yourself. So if you're going to lean into a vaccine or a doctor to tell you like, oh no, you need to take it. Like we were talking about, she was like, it's not even like, people are saying like, oh, are you gonna? It's like, oh, when are you gonna? Like, did you get the vaccine right? Because she's a teacher. And it's like, did you get it yet? Did you get it yet? And she's like, no, I didn't. And it's just people lean into this space so heavy-handedly that, when they're called to, like I said, the arena, it's very scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrifying. It's terrifying for people. They're giving away their own authority. They're I would say the only authority that truly exists in nature is that of the creator, and created the laws in which the universe operates. Um, Outside of that, everything else is fucking made up, and people love to believe. I think it stems from like childhood wounds. People want to believe that mommy and daddy are going to come save them, and they have mommy and daddy until they're 5, 6, 7 years old, which is where the majority of personality is developed, and survival strategies around personality develop and things like that. And then you go straight from mommy and daddy, and then you go into a school, and then now the teacher is the authority. They become mommy and daddy. The police officer becomes the mommy and daddy, and then the university professors and now you're paying taxes at your corporate gig, and then the government is this big authority, and the government is done a good fucking job of positioning itself there. I mean, if you look at the buildings in DC or at your capital in whatever state you're in, they look very very epic. They're
Sure.
important. and they look very religious to me. When I go and look at a building in DC, I go, oh, this looks like these are buildings built to gods. And
Sure.
so the mind of the average human is so the authority that they are perceiving that is held by human beings is it's incredible to me. Like I I had I went through the work to disassemble that out of my mind such a long time ago that when people are talking about certain things, I go, oh, that's cute. You're so fucking cute. You're a child.
That's
You're a
adorable.
fucking child. It's adorable. And I feel sorry for you because they're not actually looking out for your own good. And so as long as people are looking for somebody outside of themselves to parent them, then that's a problem. And you can tell who can. I mean, to me, that's the definition of being an adult is, can you parent yourself? And most people cannot. They cannot parent themselves. They treat themselves with disrespect. They don't love themselves. Like the way that people, if you treat yourself worse than you would treat a 5-year-old, you've yet to learn how to parent yourself well. In which case, you likely, because you do that, you probably rely on somebody else to be your mommy and daddy, and government and people, doctors in white lab coats and all this shit. They'll gladly step in to tell you what to do, because if you're not practicing your own sovereignty, somebody else will take over very, very quickly.
Yeah, and the other part of that is the idea of, the hierarchy of needs and getting to the point of self-actualization. And I've been toying around with this idea of the triangle that we all kind of saw, right? The hierarchy of needs. And what happens is we get to that self-actualization point, the tipping point. And what happens is we go back down to the bottom and we start to get, better homes and better food and better cars. And there's nothing wrong with that in practice, but it's how you identify in those things. And what doesn't happen for many people is they don't go the other way, right? And then there's the conscientious hierarchy of needs, and a lot of people don't step into that space because it's very uncomfortable, right? And it goes back to our previous point of creating the discomfort to learn. For me, again, the sensory deprivation tank being one of the best tools, sitting in that discomfort, sitting in that space with the silence, with your own mind, and listening to the different voices that come up. And the voice in the woods is like, hey, you're going, and you're like, what was that, like, what, like, huh? And navigating through that, right? But if you can have someone be the authority, and I love the idea of these buildings, that are so grandiose. It makes me think of like the pyramids, right? If we were to fast forward time and culture were to discover these buildings, they'd be like, oh, these are important buildings. Like these are,
Yeah.
like you said, like these have very high importance. This must be towards the gods. And people want to sit back and just be told what to do because it is easier.
Way easier. Well, it's well practiced.
Well, right. That's the other part of it.
For me, it's not easier
Right.
because I've practiced enough of my own sovereignty. For someone who's not practiced, anything new is difficult. And so you take a hillbilly out of Arkansas that's had very limited interaction with people. He's been getting his own food, he's been building his own shit, he's been taking care of everything himself. And then you try and throw him into a corporate environment where, oh, now your medical stuff is taken care of, and you're going to get a check every week, and you just go to the grocery store and grab your food. That person would find that difficult. So I think it's more about, it's more about being different and doing things that you're just not good at yet. It's a practice, and it's not. I don't think it's a good idea to, or even possible for most people to say, snap their fingers overnight and go, okay, I'm going from working this corporate gig in Chicago and living in a condo to out on the farm, getting my own food. It ain't gonna happen overnight. But it takes practice. And I think I see a lot of people doing that right now. I'm doing it. I go, oh, I've been traveling the world, flying on planes and staying in condos and all this shit. And I go, wow, I'm extremely exposed right now. The system is showing its vulnerabilities, and I'm feeding off of it. It's like, okay, I can still play with those things and have fun doing those things, but it's become obvious to me I need to go hop into an environment where I can take better care of myself and family and things like that. And I wanted to do it overnight and then realized I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So
Well,
I'm gonna
listen,
have to learn.
yeah, but listen, we overestimate what we could do, right? And then we also
Oh yeah.
underestimate what we could do. So, whether that be, I'm going to go off the grid and do it that way, or if it's for me, it's cleaning my fucking garage, right? I'm always like, I'm gonna get this done in a weekend, and it's been like 8 months, and I'm like chipping away. But that's what it takes, and it's the realization in that space that nothing is done overnight. But we're not trained that, right? We're not taught that. We're not
No.
taught to have patience, especially in this culture. Amazon Prime, everyone wants the quick minute abs, everyone wants to become, Buddha in a day, where, really all the lessons and all of the actual potent tangibles that you can walk away from are in the work. What are some, like, when you get off track, right? If you find yourself kind of getting off of the path of what kind of leads to the ultimate version of yourself, what are some things that you've kind of default to get yourself back in alignment?
So my default is usually journaling. So when I find myself falling off of that path, the I a if it's the middle of the day, well, it depends. It really depends on the situation. But when it's when I feel like I can reset myself, when I have the space to reset myself, take a breath, pull out the journal, and I have mantras that I work with. So every single day, and it happened this morning, and it happens, I'd say, like once a week these days, because I'm pretty on top of it. But I wake up with the mind racing with either a worry or a dream. So I'm either excited about something or I'm worried about something, you know.
I think
And
that's a lot of that's a great, yeah, I think a lot. I mean, I either go to bed with that or I wake up with that, right? That's the
yeah,
same thing. I think a lot of people, I think most people live in that space.
yeah, yeah. And
That's great, man. I love that.
I've gotten really good at when I'm going to bed is really I've done a lot of meditation work and things like that. So dropping into my body, and even if I have a lot of energy, I can usually drop into my body and be with sensations and let the thought. I have so much awareness on my sensations that thought isn't really there, or I'm not aware of it anyway. And I drift off to sleep very easily. I encourage people to do that. It's simply see how much attention you put in sensation to fall asleep. But in the morning, the mind starts clicking on like, and that comes up. And so what I do is I sleep with a journal right next to my bed, and I've got a little red light headlamp. And my girlfriend, she will go out and be talking to people, and she's like, he was up at 4:30 with a red light on, journaling. And I was like, that's how I do it. Like, because
Yeah.
if I don't do that, I won't fall back to sleep. But I journal out. I get anything I need out that is bothering me. Or maybe I'm so fucking inspired that I need to get these ideas out, because what'll happen is in these deep places of inspiration is I'll be afraid that I'm going to forget the thought that I think came up with, and I need to write it down. But when I write it down, I find peace because I now know it's there and I don't have to try to remember it. So it frees up some bandwidth. So I write down my worries. Sometimes it's like, fuck this person, fuck that person. And then, of course, I have to get back to it, like, this is all my fault. But I let myself go there.
Fuck me, really.
Fuck
Right?
yeah. It's like, this is what I fucking did. And so what I do is I let it out, like, I blurt it out, get it on paper. I call it just stream of consciousness. And then I journal out my mantras. And so sometimes when I'm blurting it out, a lot of times, I'd say maybe half the time, when I'm blurting it out, I actually see that if I'm worried or disappointed about something in my life, I see that, oh, that's something. If I'm disappointed about something, I go, that's a new boundary for me. And I write out the boundary as a mantra, as I find out, I've been doing this, and I haven't been upholding my boundary like this, but I'm gonna start doing. I now see that's a value, and I'm gonna put a boundary around it, and this is how I'm gonna communicate. I create a plan.
Hold
On
on, wait. I want to go back there. I want to stop you real quick. So so let's just say you stepped into like a behavior that you're not happy with, that isn't really leading you to the best version of you, however you want to frame it. So you have the awareness of this behavior that you're not happy with, and now you want to obviously change the behavior, change the habit. Are you implement like where are you changing the pathway, right? Because it's
Got it.
obviously you're changing that neurological pathway. What are you instilling there? Like just the mantra behind it, or
Oh, number one, I create two mantras around something. So if I'm if I am looking to change a situation in my life, two things have to happen. But the first thing is I have to show up different as a human being. So what's created the situation I'm currently in is how I've been showing up in my identity. So I look at the identity I've been operating from, and I assess whether I've been lying to myself. Maybe I've been telling myself that I've been this person, but I it's obvious the result is different than what I thought. I thought, well, if I'm because truth is results, right? So I look at the truth. I go, well, there's a result I got. I must like one that hit me several months ago was why am I not getting consistency in my business? And I go, oh, I'm not consistent in my business. Oh, I'm not being consistent. And in fact, I even if you were to ask me over the majority of my adult life and go, are you consistent? I would say, I knew that I was inconsistent, but it was one of those things where I didn't put a lot of attention on it because I didn't want to deal with it. And it's one of those things, and I don't tend to be this person anymore, but a lot of people are, which is, well, that's just how I am. I'm a creative, so I'm not consistent. And so I create an identity around it and I go, look, I am consistent. So I simply write down the word. I get the mantra. I am consistent. My business is inconsistent. It's a reflection of what's going on in my life, how I'm showing up. I'm showing up as someone who is consistent. I'm taking on the identity. I am consistent. So I do that, and then I look at how can I be consistent in which other people in my life, if they're so one is saying I take on the identity, I'm consistent. Well, a lot of people think there are a lot of things that's bullshit. So I don't want to be
right?
that's called being out of integrity. And so I
Sure.
don't want to be somebody who's out of integrity. I want to be in integrity because integrity gets shit done. And so I then look at my life and where people in my life would look at and go, damn, Mike's being consistent. I go, okay. So what would be different about what an inarguable truth that people would cause others to recognize that to be true? And I go, oh, I would post to social media every day. By the way, I don't use social media to for dopamine hits anymore. It's to get the word out, right?
Sure.
And so like
Those are some choppy waters.
super choppy. Yeah, it took me a long
Choppy
time to
waters,
learn
man.
how to surf those waves
Yeah.
without getting taken in the undercurrent. But it I look at that and I go, okay, well, not only am I consistent, but like the thing that I recognize is I check in with my vision every day. So the thing that supports I am consistent is me checking with my vision because I know that when I check in with my vision, that my mind is way more focused the rest of the day. And I even have all my students do this. I have them check in with their vision. So I created this. This is a real world example, so this is great. I am consistent. I check in with my vision every day, and I go, wow, how do I check in with my vision? Do I sit there and daydream about my future? No. That's not going to be helpful. I'm going to, I go, oh, I'm going to write it down. I write my vision out every day. I go, that's pretty good. And I got these bullet points about what I'm going to accomplish, and I've got by this date I will have accomplished this in my business. By this date I will have accomplished this in my life. Great, got great goals. And so it hit me. I created a presentation for my business, for my company, about what we're going to do in 2021. I laid out the 2021 vision back in December. I go, man, everyone was so inspired by that. I was inspired by that. I built this presentation. I gave the presentation. Everyone's like, fuck yeah, let's go crush it.
Let's go.
Yeah. I go, why don't I do that for myself? Why don't I do that? So I created a 20 point presentation, and it's a living document. So I'm shifting and all this. So now in the morning I write down, and I'll do this in the middle of the day. If I find myself getting chaotic, I'm like, whoozah, sit down, take a breath, get the journal out, do the mantras, and then I whip out my laptop and I give myself the presentation. And I've got, it starts off with, I am consistent. I check on my vision every day. It's got me standing on top of a fucking mountain like a goofball. And I showed it to a couple of my friends, and most everyone goes, well, that's brilliant. Because what I'm doing is I'm shaping my mind. I call it shaping the mind. Your mind is not something you just change. It's not something that people use. There's so much language that people use around how their mind works. People this will be an interesting one. I've been studying metaphors and words. So you're probably familiar with metaphors in regard of like archetypes and Carl Jung,
Sure.
but you can get really granular. If you look at how people in our culture refer to their minds, there's a lot of metaphor to it being a machine. Oh, he broke down. His mind broke down. It stopped working. It feels clunky today.
Right.
The gears
The
in my
gears
head.
Yep, exactly.
So you go, oh shit. If we are interpreting our mind as a machine, we're likely to treat it as a machine. So I started challenging myself, and I go, well, it's not a fucking machine. It's because if we open up my skull, there's no gears in there.
We don't know that, but
You're right. We don't know that. I'll forego. I'll just assume my brain looks like some other brains.
okay.
But yeah. So so I go, oh, I started thinking about, well, I would sharpen my mind. If you look at Buddhist philosophy, they talk about the garden of your mind, and think about it more like that. But it's a Western culture thing to think about as a machine, like it's got to go. And so,
well, we think the same thing about our body too, right? Like we use
Yeah.
our body like it's like, we're gonna redline it every day, and the days that it doesn't perform to what we expect, right? Expectation being the motherfucker in the room there, when it doesn't perform to what we expect, then we get, down and out on ourselves. We start, again, speaking poorly about ourselves. We go down that rabbit hole, and then and then before you know it, you're so far gone that you're like, wait, how did I get here? Like, how did I get here? And if you don't have the reflective state or have that honest conversation with yourself and look back on yourself, then you can, that's why more than half the culture is where it is, with whether it be health, wellness, mindset, whatever it is. That's how we get caught on that slippery slope. And it's kind of like trying to dig up now.
Yeah. My girlfriend had an interaction with a doctor recently, and I was like, wow. I mean, these doctors are assessing people. Like if you, I was talking to my friend Alex about this. He goes, if you went to a car mechanic and they go, well, it could be your alternator, but yeah, we'll switch that out. And then, oh wait, that didn't work. Maybe it's your radiator. Like, but that's what people are getting at a doctor. So I say doctors even working less well as a mechanic, even though we're all thinking about our bodies as machines. And yeah. But so the people, I call it shaping the mind. And I actually, I love that you brought up the choppy water thing. We started talking about the analogy of water, but I think about my mind is a surfboard. As when I see my mind, it's a fucking surfboard, but it's a surfboard that accumulates mass over time. And so my job is to keep shaping that board so it can ride that wave of consciousness, and I can make it where it goes fast. I can cruise on slow waves. I can cut. I can dive. All that kind of stuff. And so I really think about it as something that I'm having to shape over time, and I'm getting better at shaping it all the time. So yeah, that's a real life example. I do the I come back to my mantras, and if it's something that there's a big dream that's coming up and I'm really inspired, I do the same thing. I go, I want this thing to happen in the future that's not currently happening, and
Right. But
and I
but you get caught up in that too, right? That's also like you get so caught up in the dream of, and I always refer to it as like the future version of yourself, right? The ultimate version of you. And that's so beautiful. But when that becomes crippling, when that becomes all, when that affects the other parts of the process, that's where it gets really mucky.
yeah. So I mean, I'm definitely much more on the side of being a daydreamer than a worrier. I don't worry a lot. I daydream, and
Same.
I think that one of the reasons the people who find themselves being daydreamers are the people who are really good at adapting. Because if you have the skill of adaptation down, then you don't worry about a lot. Now the drawback is that could allow you to be a daydreamer. Now someone who relies on adaptation to get through the world is less likely to achieve their dreams. I mean, they have them, so at least they can go towards them. But a lot of times they don't put the systems in place in order to reach the dream. So then you got the systems people who can adapt, but they're so caught up in worry that that they can't focus on creating anything. So I think it's good to find balance in the two. See where we can find balance in ourselves. Hang out with people who are different than us, and they give us perspective and this and that. But when I'm having my dream and I go, I want my life to be different in the future than it is right now. The truth is if I hit the only way that I can achieve this dream is if I'm a different person. If I were that person right now that achieved that dream, then the dream would be reality. So I got to start identifying who is that person that does that thing. And it's usually multiple different identities, and it's things that I don't know that I need to be yet, but I got an idea. So I start, okay, I got a new identity. I'm the type of person who like I got another one. I complete projects. So
Yeah.
uh and I I I allow myself to add identities and to achieve a dream. But when I really nail an identity where I go like the I'm consistent thing. I've had that since November.
So you've been pretty
And
consistent.
holy shit, it's the first mantra that goes in the journal in the morning. I've gotten so consistent. This is the most consistent I've been at journaling because every day I put the date and then I start off with I'm consistent. And then so that primes me for the very next day. I think I've missed like 3 or 4 days since November. So uh so at some point I'll drop that mantra because it's who I am. I fully embodied it. And I don't drop it as soon as I think I've got it. I'll let it ride for a couple months longer because I'm in no hurry. I'm gonna shave 5 seconds off my journaling practice because I drop it. No, I'm gonna keep it going.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what that personally speaking, that's something that I've come up across in the last few weeks is this idea that I've got this under control, right? It's like, I got this, and how quickly that just slips through your fingertips, and then it becomes a scratching and clawing at getting back to where you were, right? But the reset button, luckily, you have the experience to pull from. It's like the cold shower, right? Like, it's never pleasant. It's always there. And when you do it, you feel great afterwards, but you the ability to like, at first, like, but all of a sudden you're finding it. Right. And then when you go back to it, if you step away from it, you no longer start with, you kind of start with, oh, okay. All right. We're back here now. Okay, cool. And kind of where we've tripped up as a culture is that we've taken on the term or the bumper sticker or the t-shirt, fake it till you make it. Right. And people wear that and it becomes, it becomes, fake it, but you're starting off off the line, like stumbling, right? Rather than act as if, right? Or in psychology, there's the second self where you create who you want to be. You find the people around you. And that's why community is so important, right? You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself by. You create the person you want to become and you start to show up that way. And the more you start to show up that way and the more consistent you become, it no longer becomes this goal of an identity. It just becomes who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of, the average of the 5 people you're hanging out with the most. If you want to change your identity, go find people that have the identity and hang out with them because they're going to show you what it looks like. I may not know. Like if I want to be like Richard Branson, I don't know. I haven't hung out with Richard Branson, so I don't know what it's like,
Right.
If I want what he has, then I would have to go spend time with him.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just masturbation of the mind. Yeah.
How much of it is diet a factor in this? Because I know you're starting your own farm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna take a bit to get that farm going. I'm in the steps.
Was it just your relationship with food that you're trying to shift and like?
No, I'm doing a lot of things in regard to farming. So I'm moving into that where I thought I was going to do a farm first and then some other projects second, but it looks like the other projects are going to happen first, which is working on distribution of regenerative farm food to people locally. So it's all about what I'm really focused on right now is really getting people in touch with where their food is coming from, all that. So this late spring, say June, I'm gonna host a cattle drive. So I've teamed up with a ranch to take people out on an experience to do a cattle drive, get in touch with their food there. A ranch that does grass-fed, grass-finished beef, things like that. I'm looking at what's happening in our food supply in the United States and going, okay, this is vulnerable and it's already fucked up. And people are already, fat, sick, and tired and all this shit. But yeah, your nutrition plays a really critical role in being able to adapt, to be able to take on new identities, because you have to, I think you alluded to it earlier on the show, is you have to have new neural pathways. If your body's full of inflammation and you don't have enough DHA to convert into new neural networks, you're not going to learn. You've got to get your body out of that survival state, that parasympathetic state, or that sympathetic state. And am I getting those right, man?
Yeah, I think brain just
whatever. You can't be stressed out. If you're stressed out and you're breathing shallow and you're trying to learn a new skill, and a new identity is a new skill, or learn anything, it's going to become very, very difficult. And if you're relaxed, if you're breathing deep, if your nervous system is relaxed, then you can learn things a lot faster. And if you're eating food that causes inflammation and stress, then it's just not going to be conducive to learning or adapting or anything like that. And we have an entire country, if we're looking at the US. I can speak, I travel a lot, but I find the US is the most fucked. And I mean, if you go down south, they're like in Mexico, they think it's strange if you drink water. They're drinking, it's like drinking Coca-Cola is a status symbol. So there's definitely problems elsewhere as well. But I can speak on about US the best is people are eating shitty food. They're not getting good exercise. They're either not getting enough exercise or they're over exercising. One of the two, both causing their bodies to be in stress states. They rely on pharmaceutical drugs to solve health problems. Obesity is a record rate, cancer, whatever, diabetes, obesity, all of that. I said one of them twice, but uh, these, when you look at somebody and they're red and they're from inflammation, when they're swollen, when their hands and feet are swollen, when their bellies are distended, when their eyes are bulging, or they're sunken in, maybe stick out your tongue and it's all white. They're fucked up. They're not digesting their food. They're not getting the nutrients. Their bodies are in survival and they don't know it. They don't know that they're in survival, and that's a really terrible part, is because there is a level of hubris that comes in the United States in regard to health. And one thing that became very obvious to me in the last year is that people really uh, they call health having not been diagnosed some really bad disease by a doctor. And if you haven't been diagnosed with some really bad disease that's scary, then you must be healthy. And so we have this uh, false narrative running around somehow. We could. I don't want to go villainize anything, but like you this false narrative is running rampant, and it's the narrative that's killing people. And yeah.
I think a lot of it is that we're approaching these things from the leaves inward, right? We take out the leaf and a branch, but we never get to the roots. Whether that be just with cancel culture or with health or with wellness or with anything, we trim like these outer leaves, and we never really get to the root of any of the problems. And so much of the food industry is quick and easy. It's fast. It's quick processed. And whether you believe it or not, there's energy. At the very least, you want to say love, you want to say consciousness, whatever you want to say, but at the very least, there's an energetic input into this food and its source and where it's coming from and how these animals or whatever it is are being handled creates a tangible manifestation in the food, and we're consuming that, and that's going to find its home in us.
Yeah, I totally agree. The idea of, oh, if I give this love, if I give it positive energy, if I'm caring for this in a way that's positive and all this, then it's going to produce a higher quality plant or animal, and which is going to be better, healthier for my body. A lot of people will poo-poo that because they go, oh, there's that energy talk and that woo talk
It's
or
woo
whatever.
woo hippie shit. But think about like the things you put love into, whether it be your family, your children, a plant, an animal, right? You put love into it for a reason, right? You put love into it
Absolutely.
because you want an outcome that's net positive. So why wouldn't you do something? And I'm not like farming in my backyard plucking tomatoes over here. Like, listen, I go to Stop and Shop or Whole Foods, and I'm but there's a balance to it, right?
Yeah.
And there is an energy that you want to put into anything that you want to have an outcome. I think of my children, like I put love into my children because I want them to be loving. I want them to be good human beings, right? So why wouldn't I do that for like my food if that's what's going to be my fuel for this machine that we referenced before?
Absolutely. And I think that if people could somehow get to the point where they can understand that, I think that's the most important thing, because most people are not scientific. They look at people who have degrees and they hear their opinion and then call that science, and then they go, and science is really dedicated to isolating things, especially in, say, food. It's taking a very chemistry effect and isolating compounds and saying this has got this vitamin, this mineral, and yada yada yada, and they don't know anything about bioavailability and all this kind of stuff. And so when you find people who are putting really a lot of love and positive energy into the food, and you come back and the scientists come back and they look at a specific compound, they're isolating it, you know what they find? I find that it improved. The it's And I think that for a lot of people who were brought up in school, who are basically taught for somehow, look, I took a class called Research Methods in college. It was one of the most valuable courses I took because I actually got to understand how research is produced, how it should be read, if you were going to reference it, what the things you need to let know, and then being appalled by how journalists uh, use research to write articles. Now, people go to school and then it's such a funny thing. People are dumb, straight up. They take, natural sciences and biology class and a chemistry class in high school or whatever. So they think they were told because they got an A, B, C, because they got a grade on this, that they now know science. And then uh, the teacher has an opinion or a journalist has an opinion that's referencing science, or someone's got a degree and they're on TV and they're saying this or that. And when they go, well, I don't want to be dumb. I see them as the authority on science, and I don't want, and if you go against science, then there's something going on there. And we call this scientism. It means you're into the religious dogma of science, which is not actually being familiar with the science itself, but just listening to talking heads about science and calling it that. And so what we have is people who really they want to be scientific because science is on this pedestal above everything else, right? You got science, and you know uh science is better than religion, even though people treat it like a religion. This is how
Those two go, they go back and forth, right? Like
this,
you can go back and forth and when I say religion, I think more of a systematic religion rather
me too.
than a spirituality element, right? So like when
Right.
we're referencing religion, I think we're on the same page, is that like science and religion go back and forth, right? Because people lean into science for their own vacuum of existence and their own justification behind things, but people also lean into, some of the same people will also lean into religion to justify themselves as well.
They're both blue memes in the development of the human consciousness, and so neither of which are actually uh, able to recognize their own sovereignty, and both of which buy into rules about how things are blindly. They both of those people who buy into a hardcore systematic religion and scientism, they both buy into rules because we said so. When people start talking about science, this and that, and I start talking to them about physics, and they just kind of lose interest. I go, "Oh, you never took physics? Oh, you never took chemistry?
Yeah.
Oh, so what the fuck are we talking about? Like, you're
Right.
gonna tell me just because you read an article that's referencing a scientific paper that you've just now become the expert on this? It's like, no, I've done that work. I can have this conversation, and you're getting lost in it. And so it's interesting. But going back to what you're saying is when we use actual science to look at food that was produced with love and care and is harnessing the laws of nature in order to sustainably grow food, and we're not dumping all this man-made shit into it, we end up with a far higher quality, much superior food, which I definitely want to put in my body. And all you got to do is look at the result. Grow your food like that, eat it, see what happens. Go get your food at a store that's grown the most cheapest, high yield possible. See how you feel. See what you look like. Give me a year of that, before and after pictures. I want to see the quality of your skin. How's your vision? How's your teeth? How are you pooping? Are you if you're a guy, do you wake up with boners in the morning? You should be waking up with a boner every morning. And are you having dreams? It's like my big three things for men is like dreams. Are you dreaming at night? Are you waking up with boners, and do you have solid shits? If one of those things is off, then you need to go get an assessment.
Well, listen, those are two very big three factors, right? Those are big factors: mind, body, and I guess the shit's the spirit. But those are three big factors. And adding love or whatever you want to call it, it's like this weird, beautiful placebo effect, right? And we all know the placebo effect is real. We know that it exists. And even if people are told they are participating in the placebo element, they will justify and stand on a soapbox and wax on about how it's not the placebo, right? So we know the placebo effect is real. So if we're putting love and consciousness and mindfulness, whatever you want to label it, into our food, into our bodies, into ourselves, then the result is going to breed that. And obviously you've taken all of these experiences, whether it be your plant medicine, your physical surgeries or your physical ailments, and you brought it all to obviously a coaching platform, which is now, the ultimate, which is serving others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How has that been serving?
Man, I started 2.5 years ago, and I started because I saw trainers and coaches struggling to communicate well with their clients. I noticed that the clients weren't feeling heard and understood, and I go, wow, we could be getting there are some things that I picked up over the years that I could help these coaches with that would allow them to get their clients better results. And so I pitched a round of training. I took on 6 people. I go, all right, I'm going to create a program. We're going to create it together. You're going to tell me, I got to figure out where your mind is at. Anyone who creates a course and just puts it out is really missing the boat. Is get a beta group together. I like
you need some guinea pigs.
Guinea pigs. Yeah, I get my people together. I go, look, you're going to probably pay at a discounted rate. I don't say that too much, but like
listen, you got bills to pay.
Go on. Like you're gonna pay. We're gonna pay. That the drawback is, not the drawback is, you're gonna have to trust me because it's not done yet, and I'm gonna be using your feedback to know what you need to know next. So it's a true student teacher relationship versus just me blurting information at people. So I get the students in. I got 6 of them. And we start working together, and I start having them work on the vision for themselves. And one of my philosophies that I operate from when I'm teaching is we have to get you to a place in yourself before we can even talk about what we're going to create in the world. Because I would be doing the world a disservice if I am having my students create things from a place of wounding versus a place of healing. And so we really make sure that people are solid. And there's always going to be things that come up. I get it. And we're always shaping it, but they also get that tool as well to be able to shape their mind, shape their vision, shape their attention. And so we get them really present with the vision they have for the future and their goals. And then we really find out what we need to achieve in order to make those goals a reality. And so what I found when I took the first group through is they needed more business training. And that wasn't my intention. I go, you can't, if you don't have clients, then what good is being a great coach? And so I started layering that in as well. So fast forward 2.5 years later, we have an online community. We have a platform in which we have coaches in there. We have trainings on sales. We have a drum circle. We have for anyone who wants to get weird. That's actually our most popular meeting, man. Our most popular thing at the Strong Coach is the drum circle, led by our man Jared. We have sales trainings. I'm going to hop in on Friday and do a training. I'm pulling in guest coaches to come in and teach their skills, like top level coaches come in and teach all of our coaches how they can be better coaches. We have that. We have a 6-month immersive program where we take people through the process of like really creating a program and getting clients in and then getting those clients amazing results. And so, yeah, we're the way we're approaching everything is we want to heal the fitness industry. We see where there's lies. We see where there is ego. We see where there are these things that are showing up that are just fucking up people, fucking them up, fucking up their clients. The trainers are getting fucked up in their heads. They're not actually sure of what they're doing. They're just copying certain things. So we get people in and we really teach them how to think. Like, let's actually think about this.
Yeah.
Let's learn how to feel what our clients are feeling. Let's actually connect with them. Let's give them the thing that's actually going to help them get results instead of just slapping programs on them and just doing it because that's the way you were told to do it. So really getting our coaches to a place where they fill their cup up first So they take care of themselves. They're financially taken care of. They can focus on their clients and give them the attention they're supposed to have, and then have this thriving coaching industry. I want the coaching industry to be thriving with people who are giving out amazing advice, getting their clients in touch with their bodies, and so that they can become their own sovereign beings when it comes to what is my relationship to my body, and how can I be a better service to others.
Yeah, that the coaching world, especially like in the physical fitness element of it. Am I purple on your screen, by the way?
You're definitely purple.
That's fucking weird. I don't know what the hell
We
happened.
just got psychedelic, man.
That's all cool. I'm with it, man. But especially in the coaching platform in the physical world, the physical fitness world, it's really it is a very mucky thing because you're taking people like we spoke about before. Well, if I look good, I must feel good, right? And that relationship to their body gets really skewed by coaches or by Instagram or whatever it is. And having a more mindful approach to physical fitness, which I have a few buddies who are trainers, and that's their approach. And it's not about being the strongest, being the fastest, but it's about like, hey, listen, drop the sandbag when you feel like your body's ready to drop the sandbag. Not when you think, but when you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And you'll know that difference because your mind's gonna give up quicker than your body is. And you have to get past those choppy waters of your mind that says, just drop it. Just no one cares. You have to get past that. And that's where, and even if it's one past that, that's good. That's now you've done 11, right?
Well, there's also, I mean, on the flip side of that, there's what you're saying is exactly right. You want to let your body tell you when to drop that sandbag. And it might be telling you to drop it before your mind, your ego wants you to drop it.
The other side of that
could be the other side. So like
the balance.
yeah. It's like, so like tuning into the body is it by doing so over time, you're going to be able to perform so much better. You'll be able to go longer, you'll be able to carry that bag longer. But also if your ego is really pushing your body to one more step, and then you tweak your back. Well, now you just missed 2 weeks of training, and now you're not better overall either. So it's a dance, and so that's something like I've gotten way too soft in the past, and then I'd say originally I was like my ego was putting my body through the grinder in ways that it didn't deserve, and then I got so soft because I was like I need to learn how to go the other side, and then I had to recalibrate and go, oh, I'm gonna go run this fucking Spartan race, and I am going to just be with every feeling on the track, and I'm just gonna go. And I go, my knees are hurting. I go, I'm gonna sacrifice my knee a little bit here. That's okay. I'm making the choice in this moment. I'm with it, and really, going back and loving the suffering, and while you got it, and there's to me, I think for me that's been a very long journey for me. Is I can now go into painful experiences and push harder than I was before, but also do it responsibly. And so I think that to take someone who's only been training a year and push them so hard that they might be getting hurt, and you can tell if someone's tuned into their body or not because it's usually, if they have poor coordination or they're stiff, they're not tuned in. If they have stiffness and they're a little clumsy, that just means like because if you can't send the signal out, how well you can send the signal out and how well you receive the signal in are pretty closely related.
Yeah. My daughter sits full lotus and props her hands and she'll swing her legs back and forth. She's 6, and I say to her, "Do that every day.
Keep
the rest
that
of your
going.
life. Don't ever lose that because Daddy can't even touch his own toe standing up." So do that every day. I'm purple. Mike, thank you so much, man. This was tremendous. Where can people connect with you? Where can people get your services? Where can people find out more?
For sure. You can connect with me on Instagram, Mike_Bledsoe. And really the main thing that I've got going on right now is the Strong Coach. You can go to thestrongcoach.com and check that out. I do all sorts of stuff all the time. So I really think the best place to hit me is Instagram and just be in that conversation. I'll be launching a new podcast here in a few months. So I still haven't nailed the name down yet. So again, if you're following me on Instagram, you'll know when that pops too.
Cool, man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. And yeah, it was great rapping with you, dude.
Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate you.
It was great.
All right, brother. We'll
Take
do
care.
it again.
Be well. For sure. Be well.